Hey, this is Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with Ron Stefanski from the OneHourProfessor. Now, Ron has multiple content websites, a killer strategy, and a killer team to grow his site's traffic. And in this podcast episode, we talk about how Ron makes money from Google ads, not specifically just affiliates, but mostly Google ads, and how Google ads dropped his earnings hugely, how that was quite brutal, and what he did to come back from that. We also break down what his team does and his keyword research strategy as well. So it's a great keyword research strategy that you can utilize in your own content website. We also talk about how his team create the content and how he runs and manages multiple websites. Then we dive into talking about why we shouldn't just think of traffic as a number. They're actual people, and how and why we should not just look to get more traffic, but instead build a community, and how important user experience is for all content website owners that not many people talk about at all. So guys, this is an absolutely amazing episode. I'm sure you're going to love it. If you are wanting to buy or grow or run a content website, this is an episode you need to listen to. Now, before we get stuck into this episode, I want to let you know that this podcast is not the only way I can help you for free. I have my due diligence framework 2.0, which everybody has been raving about, which will help you with knowing what to look out for when buying websites, including questions to ask the seller and everything you need to know to be buying a website safely and reducing risk. So to get that, go to my free resources tab on my website at buyingonlinebusinesses.com. Today's episode is brought to you by us here at Buying Online Businesses. Let me ask, if you have an online business, have you ever thought of selling it? We're a thriving community of website investors who are cashed up and hungry to buy your online business. Our members are well trained in online business due diligence, allowing you a quick sale of your business. And because we only want to provide a better service to our members, we're opening up the doors to allow you to sell your online business to us free of charge. So if you have an online business that's making a minimum net profit of $5,000 per year and you're thinking of selling your business, head over to our Sell Your Business page at buyingonlinebusinesses.co/sell your business. There will be a link in the show notes, and you can also find this page from our site, buyingonlinebusinesses.com. That's buyingonlinebusinesses.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. Today we're speaking with Ron Stefanski from the OneHourProfessor, and obviously from multiple sites. We talked about that yesterday because I came on your YouTube channel and had a bit of a chat as well. But yeah, welcome and thanks for your time and coming on and sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jared, for having me. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to hopefully dropping some knowledge here and helping some people out. So.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of that for sure. So the reason I wanted to get you on is we had a mutual friend that connected us, and you got quite a good portfolio of content sites. And I thought, wow, quite a lot about SEO and your content sites. You got a team. You've been doing this for a long time now. So just for the audience, what's your portfolio look like? Like, how many sites have you got? What sort of sites are they? Are they content sites? Do you have any drop shipping or e-commerce or SaaS or membership type sites? What's your portfolio look like at the moment?
Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony. So my website portfolio right now, I believe it's currently 7 content-based websites, pretty much 100% content-based. I'll talk about a little bit variations in there that I have, but mostly content-based websites. I actually just sold a website not too long ago. We talked about that. Just sold a website not too long ago, and that was also a content website. Most of the websites, I'm a little bit unique in that a lot of the money that I make is through display ads. So not many people talk about that. Not many people are into that, but there is some money to be made there. So I basically make the majority of my money there. They're mostly display ads and content site based, but I do some affiliate in there, primarily Amazon affiliate stuff. Though now that Amazon's done what they've done to everybody, I've been looking at other ways to diversify that. So that, and then I did do a little bit of Amazon FBA actually with a site that I just sold. It was a calendar that I would release every year. There's certain things I can say, certain I can't. So there was a calendar there. So I did do some Amazon FBA as well, but that's pretty much it. I'm not in SaaS. I'm not in e-commerce. Thought about it. It's just, for me, The content sites have worked. And I always tell people just double down on what works and keep it simple. And, I just slowly over time, right? Like I've accumulated these sites and, we talked about this, but I haven't been a buyer. I've been a creator from day one to, 100,000, 200, 500,000 people a month. So that's really my focus.
Yeah, awesome. So just getting lots of traffic and using ads as a monetization strategy. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people look at content sites and they're mainly affiliates and just wanting to get the best affiliate program, the best commissions. And there's some strategies around that where I teach people that they can, go directly to the retailer and bargain for a better commission rate. Now, with your ads, have you ever done that? Have you ever gone, I've heard of a few people do this before, but it can be quite hard. Have you ever gone directly to a retailer for some of your ads on your site? Or what's the main monetization platform that you're using? Is it AdSense or are there other types of platforms?
I got a bit of a bomb for you. So I don't know if you saw any of this. Okay. So for the most part, right, it was, I should say, display ads with Google for a very long time. I should say that I, in the beginning, tried to take my website and I said, forget Google. I'm just going to go right over to the retailer, the individuals. And that just didn't work. Then again, I'm not saying it can't work. I'm saying it was me in the beginning. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, this was years ago, right? So that's basically how I started it. I focused on display ads with Google AdSense for a long time, but there's been and I will say anybody that listens to this that has display ads on their site, they need to check immediately on this. So this was something, I have my own website, disclose like income reports every month. And I just disclosed this last month. What has happened is that the display ads that I've had on my website for years, or websites rather, for years, same placement, not really changing much up other than adding content, revising content, right? Because I kind of figured out a formula that works. I had those ads up for some time and they have something called an invalid click rate. Have you heard of this before at all or no?
No.
Okay, so
the click-through rate was just not tracking correctly. Is that what you mean?
No, not necessarily. So here's what it is. So basically, I didn't know about this either, but I found out when last month my check was reduced by $8,000, and this year, to give you some number, I've lost about $33,000 to this, and I've never lost any money in before. So let me explain. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. So what has basically happened? I don't know. I can't speak internally about it, and I try to be very cautious in the way that I put this because I don't want to start a fight with Google, right? Who would want to do that? But basically, here's what's been happening. My websites, again, they haven't been changing the content. The display ad layout has been pretty much the same throughout this whole time. But what has been happening is that in my report every month, I'll see we're just going to make a number up, $10,000, right? I'll see that. At the end of the month, Google is then going back, or Google AdSense was then going back and adjusting that and saying, no, you know what? Actually, you didn't get that much. You actually are getting this much because a lot of the clicks were invalid. Okay. So defining what that invalid click is very crucial because for in past years, I've never had over like a 1 or 2% invalid click rate, as they put it. But all of a sudden this year, it was at 3% one month. And then it's just been climbing literally every month. Last month, it was at 63% of my clicks.
Wow.
And again, I'm not changing anything. That's where it's like, well, what has changed here, Google? And I'm not going to get that answer. So obviously I had a really tough time with that, lost sleep over it, needless to say, because income was like cut in half. And for a display ad guy, this is brutal. So what I had done, and people had asked about this before, why didn't you join an ad network? I didn't join an ad network because I had actually applied and they literally told me, 2 of them told me, you have done, and I'm not saying I'm brilliant, but they said, you've done such a good job with ad optimization. Because I did do ad optimization myself for years because I didn't know about ad network.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about ad networks. I didn't even it wasn't really a thing when I was doing it. So I had done it. They actually said, you've done such a good job that we don't think that it makes sense for you to join us because we won't be able to pay for ourselves. Because, they take a cut, right? They take 10%, 25%, whatever it is. So they're like, we don't think that, and kudos to them for being honest, but they were like, it's not really a good fit. So I said, okay. And I stuck with them. But obviously now I couldn't stick with them, or I couldn't stick with AdSense because of what's been happening. So I actually transferred all of my sites except for one right now, and I'm going to be transferring it over. They've all been transferred over to Ezoic. And I did that because Ezoic has this nifty little thing where they can show 50% of your traffic on their version of the site and 50% of the traffic on your current version of the site. I was actually kind of testing them, and I will say I'm not making, it's so tough because I'm not making as much as I theoretically should have been on Google AdSense. But the scariest thing about this, Jared, was that I didn't know what I was making on Google AdSense until the end of the month. And then it's like, wow, I've got all these bills to pay my contractors and I can't pay them. So yeah, that's long story. But yeah, Ezoic is the one that I've gone with for this. I personally have been really happy with what they've done. And, that's been my experience so far with it.
Yeah, so let's just make that a bit clear for the listeners on like what Ezoic does, because you didn't stop using Google AdSense. You're using Google AdSense with Ezoic. And I think a lot of people may get a little bit confused about like, okay, cool, I'm going to stop using Google AdSense and go with Ezoic or Mediavine or whatever it is. So can you just like sort of shed some light on like, because I know a lot about Ezoic as well, but I'd like to hear your take on the difference between what using, display ads with Google AdSense is like compared to using an ad network like Ezoic.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the difference that I've understood so far, so basically you have your Google AdSense account and they're using that within Ezoic to serve ads paired with some other, I guess you could say, fail safes that they have in place. So the thing about this and why I made that transition, which I should have made clear, I was on Google Display Ads, and that was just me, Ron, and Google. That's all that was. Now, because I tried to talk to support with Google, I tried to work with them, nothing was working, right? Because again, I'll be diplomatic about this. It just wasn't very helpful. So I basically said, okay, I've got to go to Ezoic. The reason why I went to Ezoic is because now it's Ezoic versus Google. It's not Ron versus Google anymore. Yeah. Ezoic has a whole network of publishers, right? Ezoic has, and I can't speak to Mediavine and Adthro. I can't speak to them because I don't know, but I know that Ezoic has a lot of different things. When I was looking at all this, they had a lot of different things to detect these invalid clicks, so they never even went through in the first place. They had all these different fail safes in place. So to me, and I had reached out to all three networks. They were the fastest to respond, very helpful, had a lot of people on it, which was like, I talked to like C-level executives on this, which I was amazed about. But I think, I've obviously been doing it for a while and I made some good money with it. So they probably were like, yeah, we need to get this guy. So, but basically I had done that. And like I said, now it's Ezoic versus Google instead of Ron versus Google. And for the most part, like Ezoic is a little bit different because like I put Google AdSense on my website, and that was, as I said, Ron putting all the code in, testing different layouts, testing variations. And I probably tested like 5 to 10 over the years, right? Because you can only do so much. And, I saw little increases, decreases, whatever. Ezoic does something similar, except it can do it on every single page view. So every time somebody loads a page, it can throw up a version of the page with various ad layouts and check how the user experience is impacted and also how your revenue is impacted. That is crucial because they literally run tens of thousands of tests because their artificial intelligence does that. That's what they do.
They got over 10,000 users on Ezoic as well.
Yeah. So they know the best practices, right? And this is what always, honestly, it frustrated me because when people shut me down, I'm like, how could you, like, I'm not that good. Like, this is ridiculous that you guys wouldn't take me into the ad network, but it just, I guess I'll take their word for it at the time. But yeah. So that's how Ezoic works. And that's why I liked it, because I know I really understand it. And I know that a computer is smarter than me. I'm humble enough very quickly to admit to that. It's just a matter of, like, the one thing I will say is that when I joined, I was kind of nervous because the earnings weren't as high as what they were before, but it really does take some time, usually about 30 days, to see those results. And I could say with every one of my websites, they've covered their fee. And yeah, most of my websites, they've increased how much revenue I've been making. So
that's awesome.
It's all been a win overall for sure.
Yeah, so I've actually learned a lot about Ezoic, and I put some content out about Ezoic and what they do. And basically, in a nutshell, it's just a tool that helps you have better placements and make more money for your ads. It's one big ad tester tool to allow you to have better placements and a better user experience. And I think that's really important to talk about. We'll get to the user experience part as well, because that's what content websites are all about, is user experience. And the better user experience, the more money you can make. So I'd love to get to that user experience. And for those who want to check out Ezoic, I'll put a link in the show notes. We won't harp on about that for too long. I want to talk about your strategies and how you've grown your content sites, how you've gotten more traffic. Because for me, like, I knew when I was starting websites and growing websites what I was good at, right? I started to get really good at content marketing and SEO, and then, when I'd buy a site, I'd just plug in my ability to that and then grow the traffic and grow the sales. And then I started doing digital marketing and spent a lot of money. One year I got a couple of mentors. I spent $50,000 just on mentors in digital marketing and stuff like that to teach me how to, be really good at this. Obviously spent a lot more in ads that year, but yeah, I just learned so much. And when I bought sites, they were my two go-tos, right? I knew what to do to grow these businesses. Yeah. For you and your content sites, you've stayed in your lane, which is good. You've focused on what you're good at. So what would you say are, two sort of strategies that have been your go-to strategies to grow your content sites and gain more traffic?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest things, like number one is just the keyword. Like, I think keyword research is the foundation to everything with content sites, especially. So keyword research is number one. And then I would say number two is, it's tough because I'm a big believer in link building too. But I think number two is, this is going to sound like a weird one, but probably having processes in place to get things to where they need to be. So I can elaborate on whichever one you want. But yeah, for me, it would probably be the processes and the actual keyword research. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I love it both. Processes like the SOPs for your team and also keyword research. We had the mutual friend that put us together was Doug Cunnington. And he is a keyword research absolute gun at this.
Yep.
And he's come into our community and done a specific training on keyword research for everybody that joins, which is really, really cool. But everybody's got their own strategy with keyword research. I'd love to break down a little bit about your keyword research, and then we can get into the processes on how you sort of manage your sites and your team. So yeah, when it comes to keyword research, do you have specific tools? Do you have a specific set of things that you do? Do you do it yourself? Run us through that a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, I actually do things a little bit differently than Doug. So that just shows you that there's not one way to do it correctly. Like you got to do what works for you. So the way that I do it, because I have these content sites, right? And with a content site, when you're focused on display ads, you're not so much focused on the best blank for blank, right? Or the affiliate stuff, blank versus blank. You're not as focused on that. What you're really focused on is getting traffic to your website. So, and then you can also add affiliate later, which I've done with multiple sites. But in the beginning, what I usually like to focus on quite a bit is I'll try to find like a community. I always think of my websites truly as communities. I don't think of them as websites. I think of them a community that's going to be a profitable business. That's how I think of them. I don't think of them as a website.
This is where the user experience comes in, right? And that's the best mindset to have. I'd like to break that down, but I'll keep you going for now. Yeah.
So just understand these are people, right? We all see numbers, but they're people, you guys. Like they're not just numbers, they're people. So I always think in that way. And when I create any website, I always think, okay, I want to create a community. I want to do a thing for a community of people that have a problem or a passion or something like that. People who are really have a lot of affinity to a particular topic of any sort, whether it's a problem, passion, whatever it is, they have a lot of questions around that. So I like to, when I do my keyword research in the beginning, what I'll do, I just call a keyword data dump. And this is where Doug and I very, very much differ in our approach. I will go in the beginning and I will look at competitors. I'll just do a bunch of research, probably like 5 to 10 hours of research this is when I'm first launching a site. And to answer your question, I always do this myself, because if you get this wrong, your website is not good. It's not good. It's just not going to be something you can do. So I do this myself because it is probably one of the most important things you could do. I know for those that know John Dykstra, another guy that's out there that does display ads like me, same thing. We both have a similar approach to this. So I do a keyword data dump. I actually use quite a few different tools. I'll use Ahrefs to always look at competition of the keywords that I am running. I still use Longtail Pro, which is kind of a surprise to many because that's like a now defunct old type tool, but it's like I got a lifetime subscription to it a long time ago. So why not? So what I'll do is I'll dump I'll go and find questions that the audience would ask and also other keywords. I mean, I throw in all the keywords and we're talking 10,000, 15,000 rows of data here in the keyword research. And then what I'll do, I know this is different. I know most people don't do this. I will use a fancy little thing in Excel that's called VLOOKUP, and I will look up the competitive score of what they give it in Ahrefs, and then I'll look at the competitive score of Longtail Pro. That way I have 2 data points to really understand And also their volume of keywords, because you guys, it's like amazing. All these every keyword tool is different. One will say like 500 searches a month. The other will say 0. It's crazy. Some of the variances there. So I try to look at that and then come up with that data and say, okay, both these tools are saying this one is probably this. It's never perfect, but okay, we can be safe. Yeah. And we can be comfortable with that, right? Because now it's 2 different data sources. So I'll usually do that. I like to use a tool that not too many people talk about, which is Keyword Shitter. It's the best name ever, keywordshitter.com. So I am a big fan of like who, what, when, where, why, how. So as an example, if we were doing a website, I'll just go with, we talked about this a website on cats. We'll just go talk about cats generally.
Yes.
Yeah. So you just do like who, what, when, where, why, how. So who, like think of famous people who, who else, I can't think of who won. I gotta be honest. That's tough, but what is a better one? Okay. What can cats eat? What can't cats eat? What, all those different variations. And you just have to, like when you go to Keyword Shitter, the nice thing about it. So a lot of people talk about Google Auto Suggest and going to Google Auto Suggest and typing in like, what is my A? And then they see, right? They see the result. Keyword Shitter, I don't know how they do this. They have all those auto suggest things. They have all of them in their database. It's like crazy. So I'll usually type, what can a cat, and then press submit. And it'll come up with this crazy amount of 500, 1,000 keywords, whatever it is. So I like to do that. And again, I throw it all into this one spreadsheet, and then I'll do the references and look up everything. Those are probably, when I'm starting out, those are probably my 3 favorite tools, because it gives such a large amount of data. And I think it's overwhelming for a lot of people. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're getting 10, 15,000. Like, that's okay. All I'm doing at this point is collecting all the data. And I work from that spreadsheet for literally years. Like, and I know that the competition score changes and all this and that, but the volumes are relatively the same. The competition may change, but probably not that much. So that's what I do when I do my keyword research in the beginning. That's such a crucial part of any website.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely excellent. I've seen people use Excel sheets as well. I've had a training in somebody, Sam McRoberts actually is his name. I think he wrote the book, The Art of SEO, and he's written another couple of books. He's been on the podcast as well. But just you guys are both so wise in the sense that you're using multiple tools and looking at the variances between them and coming to your own conclusion. And just, data's your friend, really. When you look at it, is data is your friend in the sense that, like, you're going to crunch out so much more data. You're putting in so much more work than a lot of other people are doing in their keyword research, which means you're going to get so much more traffic and so much better results. And I think really people may forget that the power is in the preparation.
Yeah,
it really is.
For 100%. I mean, people that don't take a lot of time on keyword research, I could tell you that's number one issue, because I've almost gone into creating websites on specific things. I did this, and then I said, you know what? Search volume isn't there. This is no good. And I backed away from it. And that saved me hours and years and thousands and thousands of dollars. Right. So that's a big part of it too, is just to understand that, you just talked about data, and I lead with data. I like to think of myself as a good marketer, but I do not trust my gut instinct whatsoever. I always laugh because, like, 4-Hour Work Week, I don't know if you ever read that or whatever, but of course that, that's like a book that a lot of people have. And I remember in it, Tim Ferriss was talking about like, oh, how do you figure out the demand of a product? And at the time it was like, use Google AdWords, blah, blah, blah. You guys, you don't need to do that anymore. Go into a spreadsheet or go into a keyword tool, look at search volumes. There you go. I mean, it's right there in front of you. And it really is that simple. And then, there are some parts to it, like with the keywords. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing, where you have to find ways, like really similar type of keyword, because they're only going to do one keyword phrase per line. So if there's like two really similar keywords, understanding a way to kind of know that those two are similar, and then, scrub one of them out. There's a whole process to that I do kind of too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were talking about possibly buying a site yesterday when we were talking on your show. And I think a strong suit of yours would definitely be, and for anybody that's listening that may have like a skill set in online business, is use it when you're doing due diligence. Like, you could use your keyword research on sites you're looking at and be like, oh, this is good, but is it as good as this other one that I'm looking at as well? And then really work out the volumes, the trends and stuff like that. And that's another whole subject in itself, so we won't go there. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Like, the process. So you go away and get the keywords, you do all this research yourself, and then who writes the content? Like, do you write the content for each site, or just a particular type of site, or do you have a team who does that? What goes into it next? What's the next step once you've done your keyword research?
Yeah. So it started out, I have to backtrack a little bit with this. It started out my first big website that was a success. I had written, a few different posts a week, and it just wasn't going at the speed that I wanted. So when I first started out, I pretty quickly, thank you, Tim Ferriss, understood the importance and the value in outsourcing. So I basically had found a pretty good writer. Nowadays I look at that and I'm like, well, I probably could have done better. But at the time it was fine. And I found a pretty good writer. And I went with her, and I basically in the beginning was creating I call them article briefs, which is basically like, hey, this is what the intro is. This is point 1, point 2, point 3, that sort of thing. And then just handing them to her every week. And I think we're doing 2 or 3 a week in the beginning. That was really helpful because I'll tell you, if you don't have the time to do this stuff, like if you're working full time, because when I was starting out, I was working full time. I was teaching at 3 different colleges. I was trying to start my business, and I was going through my doctoral program, which I eventually left. I eventually left it because I was like, I just want to be an entrepreneur anyway, right? So That's what I had on my plate, which was insanity. So outsourcing was a requirement, not, it wasn't something I could maybe do. I had to. So basically I was doing that, and it worked out pretty well. And then that website just did pretty well. So lucky for me, because that website did pretty well, it's been able to bankroll me to build other websites. So now I can tell you kind of how it is today, which is very different than what it was before. So I did write some content in the beginning. I became more of an editor kind of later to always look over the writer. And then I eventually said I can let go of the editing part too. So now it's really cool because I have websites where it literally is, I'll find a topic, and this is a little tough. You got to stay away from shiny object syndrome with this, but I'll find a topic and I'll say, this is the one, this is a good one. And before I do everything, I'll do the keyword research. I'll think about how I can monetize all these different things. And then once I have it in my head, then I'll say, okay, this is a go. Let's do it. So what I'll do is I'll do the keyword research, get it done. And then I hand it to my writers. And I say, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, I'll update the spreadsheet of keywords that they can write about, right? Mm-hmm. It's nice because now the way it is they can write about these keywords, and here's all the subtopics that go into there, right? I'm not creating a full article brief, but for those that are Excel people, for every column I have, here's subtopic 1, here's subtopic 2, here's subtopic 3, so that they kind of still are getting an article brief, not as granular, but they see it.
Do you add in relevant words? Everybody's got different names for these different relevant words. They're not keywords, but they're just relevant words that are within the topic. Do you add in those as well?
I don't. See, that's the interesting thing. I feel like a lot of people over-optimize SEO quite a bit. What I like to do when I'm doing this is I'll say here's the main topic, here's subtopic 1, 2, 3, which maybe would be some of those keywords that you're speaking about. Yeah. But if you're talking about target keywords in the post that you should also, I never do that because my title is the key, right? It's going to be the keyword that they need. I do tell them that, hey, in the paragraph, the first paragraph, one time, I want you to use the exact keyword. That's the only thing that I tell them, the exact keyword of the title. Other than that, I let them write freely. And the reason for that is because if I try to force keywords in there, you can then have people stuffing keywords, things like that. And it's if they're writing naturally and it's a topic that's related to what they're writing about, it's going to come up anyway. So I don't get too much deeper into the weeds with that now.
You don't want to make it too monotonous and automated in a sense that you're pulling away from that easy readability, that good value where you've got to stop okay, I've got to stuff this little thing in here. Exactly. And then the user's just this is a bit the user can tell, human beings are so smart, even if we can't consciously detecting it as we read, subconsciously we may be, or probably are. And be this is good, but it wasn't as good as this other blog that I like to go and get all my cat advice from.
Yep. Especially now, the trained eye, I can, I can look at an article and be the keyword stuff, and that's cool. Yeah. So that's usually how I do it. Right. So now that's how it is. I do have some, speaking of SOPs, processes, I do have some templates that I kind of make them work from. Okay, if it's a question post, right? If it's asking a question, here's kind of the general format that you want you to do. If it's eventually when we get into affiliate stuff, if it's a best of post, this is kind of the form. So I do have templates that they can work from for that. But nowadays, for the most part, when I'm starting out, it's hey, here's some questions. And I'll give them some guidelines, in that template, hey, make sure that you use academic sources, never link to competitors, always speak gender neutral. So never he or she, but they, things like that. And I basically have them then write. And it's really cool because now There's a website that my wife and I started. I don't read the articles. I'm like, maybe this is just irresponsible of me. But my team is so well knit now that the newest one that we've started, I'm not reading the articles. Like it literally goes, okay, I update a keyword spreadsheet, like high level overview. I update a keyword spreadsheet. The writer goes in, picks a topic. They write about the topic. The article then gets taken, put into a Google Drive folder, and then it goes to an editor. The editor then goes in, they read over it, they make sure everything's good. And this editor's been with me for a while, so I trust her, make sure everything's good. And then they say, okay, we're good. She then takes it, puts it into a different folder. Then my virtual assistant, she will take it from that folder, go to my website, put it up, put the formatting in, put the pictures in, and then I just get an email saying, hey, this one's ready. And I just really, for the most part, glance at it because I was so busy with other things. I'm like, yep, looks good to me. And, there's a lot of training though. There's a lot of standard operating procedures that go into each part of that. But because, and I know you've talked about this before, because I've done it in one business, I've carried it to the next and the next, and I can just keep going with it because now this is the way that the train's going, right? Like I know every step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I know what it's doing. So now I can that's why now I can just say, I want to do a website about this. Turn around and create a new website, and within a week have 10, 15 articles, and it's just running like a smooth oiled machine because of that. So
yeah, it's like, for example, if you built a train, like a physical train that went around and around and to all these different stops and did all these different things and the hospitality inside it and all that sort of stuff, you're not going to sit on the train all day, every day and make sure things are good. You're probably going away and building another train. You've set up this process, and it's the exact same thing with me. Is like, I will record this podcast with you. I'll finish this on Zoom, and then just upload all the files to Google, and that's it for me. Like the whole team does the editing, they publish, and absolutely everything. So I listen to every single episode, but only when it's recorded, like now, not afterwards. And that's because the team becomes a well-oiled machine, and hats off to you for creating that, because that can take time. And I think people like listening, don't skip steps. Make sure you put the training in and get those processes done really, really well, and make sure those processes are quite simple and easy, and the team understands it, because it's just going to make their job better. And it's going to make the content better. It's going to make the end product better. And they're going to love working with you. And that's why your train's been going for many years. And you've built other trains, such as different content websites. So that's awesome.
And one other thing to that too. One thing that I like to do, because it is, just as you said, it's a process, piece by piece by piece. And to be clear, like it's taking time to get here, guys. Like any newbies, like it probably took me to get to the point to where I am now with this particular part of it. I mean, you could argue it took the whole time, but I would say like, probably like a good 4 years of really understanding the process and how it works. And like, I know, especially in the beginning, it's hard to let go of certain things, right? Like you always want to be the editor because you want to be the last eye. You always want to be the person posting because you want it to look exactly how you want. That's all trainable. But I suggest personally, just start outsourcing one part at a time. Let's remove step 2. And once that's really polished and everything's good, and you know that everything's okay, let's try to outsource step 3. And then the other thing about that is that with my processes and my assistants, everyone that helps me, and I'm grateful for every one of them. One thing I always make sure to do is first off, I always tell them that I appreciate what they're doing. But the second thing is that I do show them anytime that they're assigned a task, I explain to them how this is impactful for my organization and from a high level, what this means. Because I think it's really easy for people to assign things like, hey, like my virtual assistant, hey, I need you to put up blog posts. Like how boring is that, right? Like no one's going to enjoy doing that. But she needs to understand that, hey, when you put this up, this is the next step. This is what I do. Here's what comes over here. So helping them understand bigger picture, and again, telling them that you appreciate them, that's the biggest stuff, is just making sure that they understand a high level, because if not, they may not value the work, or they may think that a little mistake doesn't mean much, but it can actually be catastrophic, and they need to understand why that is.
Yeah, if they understand the whole, and also, sometimes cross-training them in different tasks as well. If like somebody's sick and can't do this for a certain period of time, you're like, well, I need somebody to pick up that slack. You're not going to come in and be like, oh, I need to write the post myself. Yeah. So having them understand the macro, that's a great point. So I want to ask about user experience and community. Like this is such a massive thing that I think the light doesn't really get shed on it enough for content site owners in making sure that people are coming to your site and they're part of one big community and they feel welcome, they feel at home, they have a great experience reading through and getting value from your site? How do you create that community? How do you create a really good user experience
That's a
with your
good question.
sites?
So yeah, definitely. I think the first thing is, because like I said, most people think like these are people. Like I'm trying to tell everyone, these are people. Like those numbers in analytics, those are people. They're not numbers. So I think a big thing for people to understand is, when you're doing it the way that I'm doing it, you're doing questions, or you're answering questions, right? People are coming to your website, and they're usually, because I'm a big proponent of SEO, right? I focus on organic traffic. To be clear with everyone, I'm not buying ads, although I did come from an agency. I know how to do that, but I don't do that at all. I use a little bit, but I barely use social media. It is almost exclusively SEO, almost exclusively. So I do SEO, but one of the things that I do, I'll bring them in, and then I'll do like content upgrades on specific pieces of content on the website. I usually am too lazy to do like specific content upgrades for every single type of, category or whatever.
Of
So I'll try
course.
to do I'll try to do one like large scale opt in and you'll get this, right? For anyone that's listening, it's really not the best practice. You should do like specific ones, but that's what I do
Yeah.
because I have so many other things going on. And one of the things, like once you get that, once you have that email, whatever that content upgrade is, then you're able to really build a community around that through a lot of the words that you're using within your emails, right? Because
Yeah.
now they've joined your ecosystem. And that's kind of the idea. Like you're no longer just a visitor on a website that's going to click off in 30 seconds. You now are in the ecosystem. So you have to think like the individual that's receiving it, and try, this is where copywriting comes in. You have to try to be a little bit different, a little bit better than competitors, and find a way to show them that you're appreciative. Because the thing I always say is like, hey, without you, this whole community wouldn't exist. And I don't really call it a website, I call it a community, because that's what it is. The other thing I
That's
do
great.
and the other thing I do that not a lot of people, I don't hear a ton of people talking about, some do, one of those opt-ins that I almost always have on my websites, and not every one of them, but a lot of the times, is I will have, hey, join our Facebook community. And this is a beast that feeds itself. So this was discovered actually through the website that I just sold. So I didn't really know what the opt-in was going to be for that one. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what to do here. And I thought, well, this is a community of people that were passionate about something. So let's just create a group on Facebook. So what I did is I said, hey, join our Facebook group. That was like the call to action on the website, the pop-ups, yada, yada. Join our Facebook group, connect with like-minded people. People love community. That's like human nature. Like this isn't even
It
marketing.
is.
It is. So like they just love community. So bring that community to them. Be the one that owns that community and bring it to them. So I had done that, and I had basically just said, hey, yeah, click to join. They click to join on the website. And then it's like, great, send us your email so that we know who you are and we can verify that. And then we'll give you the information to join the community. That works, especially if it's people that have a problem. That really works, because now you can frame it as, there's a ton of people, and I have a website like this. There's a ton of people that have a very similar problem as you. They're living the same life as you. They know what you're going through. Join here to join that community. That builds a big, big, big part, and kind of really encompasses the idea of a community versus just a website. So you pair that with the email, and between those two things, you can get a lot of support and you can really establish a community. When it gets really sweet, and this is what happened to the website that I had, I was actually ranking in Facebook. When somebody would search on the topic, I was the number one result. So that particular group was getting 50 to 100 people a day.
Wow.
By doing that, which was like an anomaly. It was crazy. I remember, I think when I sold it was like 30 or 40,000 people. It's massive. So that was pretty crazy. But I think a part of that is because Facebook's understanding like, hey, this person's growing this Facebook group really quickly. And then they understand external traffic's bringing people in. How is this happening? And then I think, and I don't know for sure, but it seems like Facebook in their algorithm has something understanding, hey, all these people are coming here and they're all joining. So as that happens, then it gets bigger. And then eventually you hopefully hit that tipping point to where in Facebook's like, you know what, this is the number one result for people that need this. And then they're growing it too. And now you just push your website content over to the Facebook group, and all of a sudden people love that. And then they're going back and forth. So that's what you need to do, or that's how I do it.
It's that herd mentality. And I think Sam Ovens, I don't know if you know Sam Ovens, he talks about this, the feedback wheel. And once, one person starts doing something and it gains traction, more people start doing it. And that's how like a big random dance party can just happen by one person dancing. A lot of people just get attracted in that herd mentality of jumping in.
Every wedding ever, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. And that's what community is all about. You don't need to preach to me about community. I run a pretty successful community, and people love being around each other and helping each other. And when you have that community, which is insane, this thing happens like an anomaly, like you said, is like people are helping one another out, but you're just hosting, you're just there sitting back going, okay, cool. Like I created this thing, but it's so much bigger than myself. It's this ecosystem that you talked about, and your goal was to initially start adding value and helping people with your website, and you built this ecosystem, this community around it, which just starts building itself. I just think that's the best way to think about content sites, because a lot of people, like you said, can get lost in the numbers and forget that it's like just traffic and just herding cattle into this site, and hopefully one of these cattle, stamps his footprint on a ad and I make some money. To me, it's an icky, disgusting way to think about it. But when you're actually coming from the frame of mind of like, I want to add value and I want to help people change their lives, or I want to help people have the most healthiest cat who has the best cat life ever, then it's a very different story, and the results are very different because of it. So glad you highlighted on that. Now,
yeah, and I do want to say one thing, Jared, before we move on, because I think this is important too, because you talked about numbers. One thing that is different, I think, with like this type of website, and something that I didn't really cover too much before with content, is the fact that when you're doing these questions, like a lot of people are like, well, what's the search volume that I should be looking for and all this and that. I very frequently go under 50 a month, because in these type of websites, I'm not saying you just have to do that, but in these types of websites, it's more about, quality is important. Yes, quality is always important, but there's a sheer number, right? Like, because you're doing ads and you need the traffic, it's a sheer numbers game. So if you can publish 10, 12 articles a week, and then all of a sudden you're pushing those out and you're ranking, you can rank really quickly on a lot of those, because they're like these questions that no one's asking, no one's writing about, and then you rank. And with me, it's funny because I tell my wife and stuff, like, we've built this whole, or not built, but we bought this whole house that I'm in off of 20-cent clicks. That's like, it's crazy, right? It's cool. It's all these little itty bitty clicks that add up to these big things. So I take the same approach to my articles. I just say, okay, 50 searches a month. I'm very happy with that, because you know what? I can get 10 of those, and now I'm getting 500 searches a month, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I think of it. I don't think, let's go, well, I shouldn't say that. In OneHourProfessor, on my website now, I'm focused more on those higher end things and those higher search things. But in most websites, most of my ones that I've had in the past, like these community-based ones, just, the little stuff, right? Like just a bunch of the little stuff, and you write it and you put it up, and you write it and you put it up. And it's beautiful because not many people are competing on it. It's just not that difficult. So anyway, sorry, I had to make sure.
Yeah, that's great. You got to start somewhere, and it all stacks up. It's just one foot in front of the other. And it's the same message to those who are looking at buying a website. It's like, you can't just buy a website, own it, and just be a master at running your site. You need to first go through the stages of due diligence. And you need to go through that whole process of like, all right, looking at one, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and having a seller call, and then having another seller call, and then getting knocked back on an offer, or then also, getting really close to one and somebody else purchased that instead of you. That's the part of the process that actually collapses your mind and gets you set up to have the right mindset to deal with those blows that happen when you do own a website as well. And it's just one of those little things at a time, one thing at a time. You don't have to, take down the whole herd all at once and do it all at once. And I think that's an awesome message to finish on. So where can people find out more about you and get help from you to help them, grow their sites as well?
Yeah. So spelling it out, it's just OneHourProfessor.com, not the number one, but spelled out, OneHourProfessor.com. You can go right to the website. You can look there. I've got, a free mini course. I tell people the quote unquote truth about online marketing. Check me out there. Or if you want, I also have a YouTube channel under the same name. I publish 3 videos a week there. So there's some good value there as well. But yeah, appreciate you having me on. And anyone that wants to connect with me, subscribe to the YouTube channel and just comment. I literally see and read and respond to all those. Or you can just go to my website and there's a contact link, and you can go down there and message me that way too.
Yeah, awesome. All the links will be there in the show notes, guys. Check out his YouTube channel. It is great. Yeah, thanks so much, Ron, for coming on the show. Guys, that's it for this episode. Now, before we go, I want you to think of 2 to 3 people. Think of 2 to 3 people who are wanting to either buy a website, a content website, or grow a content website that they've just bought, right? Now, what I want you to do is do them a massive favor and share this episode with them, because that's going to help them. Like, we're talking about a community. We are a community. Those of us who listen to a podcast, we're in this ecosystem. We're in this community where we want to help each other grow, both in life and also in business. So please do them a massive favor and share this podcast with them so they can get value and learn what Ron has just dropped, these absolute bombs in how to grow a great content website. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll speak to you on the next one.